Hi there, this is Mark Schauder with Sotheby's International Realty with another episode of Poway Today. Today I'm here with Jason Gordon of AmeriFirst Financial. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Mark.
Why don't you tell us what you do?
I am a residential mortgage lender, which means I help home buyers arrange the financing to buy their next home in the situations where they don't have the ability or desire to pay all cash for that purchase. I also help homeowners determine whether or not a refinance would be a benefit to them for various reasons.
Okay, and you have a specialty also that you work?
I do. Although I help all populations of home buyers and homeowners, I do have a specialization in helping divorcing homeowners go through what amounts to be a very tumultuous time, especially when they own real estate and have a mortgage to deal with.
And how did you get into the mortgage business?
Well, I came in through the banking world, which is actually very unique. A lot of folks in the mortgage industry came in through call centers for other industries and just started learning how to sell mortgages, which is actually very dangerous in our society. I came into the banking world. A certain company, which I won't mention the name, they are very fond of stagecoaches and horses, but they taught me a little bit about a lot of things. In fact, that phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, could not be more accurate for the training I got in banking. So I learned a little bit about a lot of things, but not all that much about any one thing. So for example, consumer banking, business banking, savings and investments, and lending. And the challenge here is I knew if I wanted to achieve the goals that I had professionally, I needed to pick one, specialize, and get really good at it.
Got it. So that might be one of the greatest challenges of getting specialized in certain areas?
Well, it's always a challenge in the mortgage industry, a lot of variables that we don't control. In fact, I would even say that whether a mortgage lender or a real estate professional like yourself, we have what I call external variables. External meaning outside, variables meaning changes. External variables are things that we don't control that directly affect our business, how well we do our business, and how others perceive how well we're doing our business. So for example, on my side, mortgage rates. Bank approval guidelines. I don't control those, but not a day goes by that I don't get judged by my rate quote. And on your side, you don't control housing values or the number of houses available in a certain zip code for sale. We have government regulations. We have things the media says or doesn't say. The way our competitors advertise, technological advances, or even the consumer's willingness to embrace technological advances. These are all variables that we don't control. So these are the ultimate challenges I see in both of our businesses. And the way I see it, adversity is inevitable. How we deal with those challenges defines us as professionals.
Right. Changes. I'm sure you see changes over your career here in lending.
Yeah, well, over 20 years doing this, I've seen a lot of changes. Obviously, most notably was the housing crisis back in 2007-ish time frame. That was a tough time. In fact, the company I worked for at the time had over 100 loan officers. I was one of the managers. Within a year of that housing crisis, only 8 of us were left in the business.
Wow.
And I mean, everything changed for the worse. We had government intervention. We had banks disappearing. I mean, when's the last time you saw a commercial for Countrywide or Washington Mutual or Downey Savings? You have them because they're gone. And so those of us that stayed the course really had to pick up the pieces at a time where everyone else was departing. So a lot of changes. I think most notably nowadays, though, is technology. Who would have thought ever that people would trust their largest indebtedness of their lives to an app on a phone? At a time where the largest white-collar crime is identity theft. People are uploading an identity theft package into cyberspace, dealing with someone who's 3,000 miles away with their biggest indebtedness. We never thought that would happen. And so that's been a challenge. And it's been something that, I respect people's decisions and their right to make their decisions. I don't understand that part. I never will.
Okay. Memorable experiences that you've had with a client?
I've had a lot of those. In fact, the more I have these experiences, the more I want more of them in terms of these intrinsic rewards we get. In fact, my wife is a psychotherapist, and her and I, she actually coined a phrase when I first met her called a $1 million paycheck. Now, of course, no one's writing us a check for $1 million, but it's an intrinsic reward that you get in the course of doing your job at a high level. And specifically, I had a woman, this is probably about 14 years ago. She was referred through a trusted colleague. She had just gone through a divorce. And when we sat down in my conference room and we had our first meeting, it had really nice rapport building and needs assessment. She burst out into tears to the point where I had to go get her some Kleenex. And she said at one point, I appreciate everything you're saying, but I just don't trust men right now because of my ex-husband who did blah, blah, blah. And it was a pretty tough challenge. I obviously didn't want to tell her how to behave. Fast forward to the conclusion of that endeavor, we got her the home, we got it to her just with everything exceeding expectations, and she was so happy and got the biggest hug from her that I've ever gotten from a client. And
Makes you feel good.
one of those moments where you just, it's kind of that, again, that $1 million paycheck, that kind of that shot in the arm that just feels fantastic. And I say every day we strive to do something like that for the folks that we help.
Very good. Anything we haven't touched on today that you'd like to share?
Not really. I think I just want to expand on the divorce side of things. So first things first, I'm not a one-trick pony. I do help people who are not involved in divorce. In fact, that still is the majority of my clients.
Right.
However, in life, we have transitions. We have changes in life, whether, just as humans, and they're positive and they're negative. Positive changes in the course of our business, maybe helping someone buy their first home, or upgrade to their dream home, or buy their first investment property. These are all very happy, positive transitions. Right. Champagne corks pop in, hugs, tears of joy. But there's also negative, not so happy transitions in life. And specifically, or most notably, I'd say, are death, divorce, financial hardships.
Right.
And very few of the mortgage and real estate professionals out there want anything to do with those negative transitions because they're hard. There's not specialized training that people actually engage in typically, unlike you and I. And so what I want the folks maybe watching this to know is that both of us have gone through a very rigorous course in designation called an RCSD, which stands for Real Estate Collaboration Specialist in Divorce. I have not only done that, but I've taken another curriculum, which is still ongoing, by the way, through the Divorce Mortgage Association. It's called the Certified Divorce Lending Professional, or CDLP, where I'm constantly being trained and tested on that. In fact, I'm going through mediation training as we speak right now. And then I'm also going through training through the Divorce Real Estate Institute. And by the end of next month, I'll have a very unique designation called the Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert, and which I believe at that time I'll be the only person in the country that has all three designations. So working very hard to responsibly help divorcing homeowners at a time when they need answers. If in the absence of those answers, they're making legally binding decisions, typically based on emotion or assumption, when they should be basing them on fact. And there's plenty of examples I can always go over.
Yeah, why don't you give an example?
Yeah, so a perfect example here, let's just say we have a husband and a wife. They have a property that they've lived in. They're both on the title ownership of the home. They're both on the loan itself that is attached to that home. They decide amongst themselves that they're going to get divorced. There's $100,000 in equity, and he says, well, I'm leaving the house. You can have it. She says, great. I'll give you $50,000 or half of the equity.
Right.
He says, great, I'll take $50,000, I'll leave, but I also want you to remove me from that joint loan so that when I have my credit pulled in the future, I don't have this $500,000 debt hanging over my head. So they both go to their attorneys. Attorneys say, well, that's one less thing that you're fighting over. Let's petition accordingly. The judge gets it and says, well, that seems like a very fair situation. But now we have a court judgment, a legal judgment that says she needs to remove him from the loan and give him $50,000. Well, oftentimes it's only then, when all the smoke is cleared, that she comes to someone like me and says, I need to refinance this, $400,000 loan that's in both my husband and my name into just my name, and I need $50,000 on top of that to buy him out. And I'm looking at her situation and says, well, you don't qualify for that loan. It's a very sobering situation, because at that point in time, she may have to sell the property. And as we know, it takes money to sell property. What if she has to bear the entire burden of cost of sale because she failed to look ahead? And so he walks away with $50,000. Maybe she walks away with $10,000, $15,000 because they didn't plan accordingly.
Okay, and to solve this problem, what do they need to do?
Well, if I was brought in earlier, I could have had that conversation with them, let her know that she would not be able to refinance. At that point, they could have made plans to let their attorneys know that they're going to sell the marital home. They each walk away with equal amounts of money and can move on to maybe smaller homes that are more suitable to their qualifying parameters, now that they're actually applying by themselves, not jointly.
Right, okay.
And so to tie that together, I work very closely with divorce professionals, specifically family law attorneys. I like to be part of their divorce team. Very similar to how they would get a child therapist involved early on to determine custody situations. I want to be part of that team with as many divorce attorneys here locally in Southern California as possible, so they can have their clients do their due diligence, petition accordingly, and get positive results. And any family law attorney will tell you it's very hard to reopen a case once you've had a judgment.
Nearly impossible from what they told us.
Especially if your reason for reopening the case is that you failed to do your due diligence. So that doesn't usually equate to a happy
situation.
Yeah.
Very good. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Jason?
Well, my cell phone is 619-200-8031. But of course, nowadays people don't really remember cell phones, they go online. So you can find me at divorceloanpro.com. There's a Facebook business page that says Divorce Loan Pro with my name, Jason Gordon, on there. Or you can Google Jason Gordon Mortgage, and there's a whole bunch of different information on there. In fact, I'd even go to say that any mortgage professional that you just decide to work with, if you Google their name and the word mortgage and nothing comes up, that's a red flag. That's someone who's hiding behind their company and may not be quite as accountable as someone who's out there.
Not as much experience.
Yeah, and if they don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's a red flag. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have a Yelp page. You type in Jason Gordon San Diego, you can actually see several 5-star reviews on there as well. So I'm an open book. Come find me and I'd be happy to work with you.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Again, this is Mark Schauder with Sotheby's International Realty with another episode of Poway Today.